Good morning, everybody. Hope you are enjoying your snow day and staying warm. Gonna do some review for the test for you. Just gonna simply go over the documents and show you how to use them with the key concept handout that I gave you. So you're gonna need your documents, and then you're gonna need this Unit 5 Revolutions handout. If you can't find either, I will post them. They will be posted on Google Classroom with the video so that you've got them. Um, so let's dig in here. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, but I also want to make sure we have plenty of information. You have the information you need, and also want to make sure that you know that if you are stuck, if you got questions, you're not sure what is going on with any of the documents, send me an email, and if necessary, we can always set up a Zoom or a Google Meet if we have to help you walk through something that you're stuck with, you're not really understanding what's going on. Okay, so here we go. First document, read through it, and you're going to see that it's the first document is from Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and he is talking about women more than anything. And I'm just going to read it to you, I guess, probably the easiest way. It says, the strictness of the relative duties of the two sexes is not and cannot be the same. The woman complains on the score about unjust man-made inequality. She is wrong. This inequality is not a human institution, or at least it is the work not of prejudice, but of reason. It is up to the sex that nature has charged with bearing of children to be responsible for them to the other sex. The whole education of women ought to relate to men, to please men, to be useful to men, to make herself loved and honored by them, to raise them when young, to care for them when grown, to counsel them, to console them, to make their lives agreeable and sweet. These are the duties of women at all times, and they ought to be taught from childhood. Now, ladies, I don't agree with him at all, so don't get mad at me. Get mad at Rousseau. This is really, the attitude of, 1762, the world, really, and unfortunately in some places still that attitude. This is very much a patriarchal attitude, so you're going to want to write that down, that's really the context of this, and also the second document, that they're really living in a very much patriarchal time as this. Now, both of these are based in the Enlightenment, okay? So you're going to want to use on, well, let me read the second document so we get the other opinion. And this is from Emily du Châtelet, and it's an introduction to her translation of Bernard's Mandeville's The Fable of the Bees from 1735. So this is 30 years before Rousseau that this attitude is coming out. So Rousseau's comments are in reaction to what Châtelet and other women are saying. I feel the full weight of the prejudice which so universally excludes us from the sciences. It is one of the contradictions in life that has always amazed me, seeing that the law allows us to determine the fate of great nations, but that there is no place where we are trained to think. Why these creatures whose understanding appears in every way similar to that of men seem to be stopped by some irresistible force, I am convinced that many women are either unaware of their talents by reason or the fault of their education, or they bury them on account of the prejudice for want of intellectual courage. My own experience confirms this. So she obviously is definitely opposite to Rousseau. She's probably one of the people that Rousseau is complaining about, that women are complaining in the second line of the document above. Okay, and she's definitely saying that women should be educated. So there's really your three key points. Both use the idea, talk about the ideas of reason, but they use different conclusions. So where we use this with the key concept packet is if you scroll down, they're both from the Enlightenment, so you're going to scroll down to the page that says the Enlightenment, okay, and you're going to look at, first of all, you want to look at the learning objective, and you're explaining how intellectual and ideological context in which the revolution swept the Atlantic world. Okay, so this isn't really talking about the revolutions. So we want to move on to the second one, is how the Enlightenment affected societies over time. And this is really where we come into talking about women's rights and others in particular. Okay, so it's really these two documents talking about it, how the demands of the women suffrage and emergent feminism changed political and gender hierarchies. Okay, and it takes a little while because, as you see in the Rousseau reading, you've got a very patriarchal society. So you want to make sure you have written down that the main things you need to pull out this is they're both using reason, they're both using the ways of the Enlightenment, coming to different conclusions. Chatelet especially is saying that women deserve education, and that's really in this Casey, the first one here on the page. Okay, and then the whole context of this is the patriarchal background. Even though these philosophers here, okay, in this key concept are very liberal thinkers by their times, they are still living in the times when men were supposed to be doing this stuff and women were supposed to be staying home, having children, keeping house, and making the man happy. Obviously, and thankfully, we don't live in that kind of times today, but that's where you're at on that one. Okay, so that's document one. And obviously, if I went fast, go back and listen to it again. All right, so let's move on to the second document. Okay, this one here. Okay, this one is from Voltaire, and if you remember from your Enlightenment, that's the quotes we did way back in early January. Voltaire is one of the most important thinkers of the Enlightenment. He is kind of the father of the ideas of religious freedom and religious toleration, especially in the Western world. Okay. And in this, let me just read the document to you, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it and connect it to your key concept page. Okay, so we're still on the pages with the Enlightenment. So it said, does not require great art or magnificently trained eloquence, meaning speaking ability, to approve that Christians should tolerate each other. I, however, am going further. I say that we should regard all men as our brothers. What? The Turk, my brother? The Chinaman, my brother? The Jew? The Siam? Yes, without doubt, are we all not children of the same Father and creatures of the same God? Okay, so this is really about toleration, and not just toleration between Catholics and Protestants, but toleration of all religions. Okay, and he basically is using these ideas of the Enlightenment, the ideas that you have to think through things with as not based on religious doctrine, but through using reason, which is again the ideas of the Enlightenment. That dictates you to be tolerant of others when you think it through, and it's really important with that last sentence about that. Okay, and he goes on to really, I mean, it's really pulling out, and when you look at it with the key concept, okay, and it's this one here again, okay, on the first page, this concept 153.1a, that rational processes and reason is what creates change. Okay, it says the Enlightenment philosophies applied new ways of understanding an empiricist approach to both the natural world and human relationships. They examined the role of religion played in public life, emphasized the importance of reason, and they also developed the new political ideas of the individual, natural rights, and the social contract. Okay, so that's the second document. Let's move on to the third document. Okay, and all of these documents you're going to get at least two multiple choice questions. I'll talk a little bit about the multiple choice questions at the end of the video. Okay, next one here says Article 2. The goal of every political association is the preservation of natural and inalienable rights of man. Again, Enlightenment concepts. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. Okay, and again, these come into play. They're part of the Enlightenment, but they also show up in the nationalism and revolutions part, because in here you have a specific mention of the French Declaration of the Rights of Man, which is where that comes from. Okay, so it's this one here is kind of, this is your important historical developments. This idea of uh, rights and changing the government, distrust of monarchy, and things like that. So it's really about Enlightenment reform, and creating a society where everyone is treated equally. Kind of the background of this, because it's the French Declaration of Rights, this comes out during the French Revolution. So we're really focused on kind of this middle little part here, for the context. Okay, Declaration of Rights of Man comes out during the French Revolution. It is the French Revolution, if you remember, is the most bloody of all of the revolutions we're going to talk about, save maybe Haiti. It's a bloody, violent revolution, but it really kicks off 25 years of international wars, most significantly in Europe, but also elsewhere. It's one of the things that causes the revolution in Haiti and the revolution in Latin America. So all of these things are kind of intertwined, and then you have the Napoleonic Wars that follow the wars of the French Revolution, that last from the 1790s to 1815. Okay, and then the French Revolution has farther impacts down the road. All right, so we're moving on to the fourth document. And again, I'm trying to go fast so you're not on here forever. You get the information you need. So this next one is from the Declaration of Sentiments signed at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. And if hopefully you remember that that's Seneca Falls, New York, 30 miles down the road from where we are. Okay, so let's look at what this topic is, and what this document is saying. So now, in view of this entire disfranchisement of one half of the people of this country, and they are speaking, of course, about women, their social and religious degradation, in view of the unjust laws above mentioned, and because women do feel themselves aggrieved, oppressed, and fraudulently deprived of the most sacred rights, we insist that they have immediate admission to all rights and properties and privileges which belong to them as citizens of the United States. Okay, so the backbone of this one really comes back to what we were talking about on the first document. Okay, both of these developments, but especially the second one here, the demands for women's suffrage. Okay, and it's really feminism. This is especially in the United States, this is the quintessential piece of feminist doctrine in the United States. This is where the feminist movement in the United States, the women's rights movement, begins in the United States. It is one of the documents you need to be somewhat familiar with over here, as it's written in the illustrative examples. Okay. The long-term effect of this, and this is written in 1848, it takes another 72 years before women get the right to vote, but eventually they do. Okay, so that's really what the gist of this document is. It's about feminism, about women's rights. Those two mean the same thing, and that the long-term effects, it will eventually lead to women gaining the right to vote. All right, so hopefully you're hanging with me here. And again, if you have questions, send me an email, send me a message through Google Classroom, and I will try to help you work through it. And if you're really stuck, we can do a Google Meet. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next document. I believe this is document number 5. And this one is railway development in the Carpathian region of Hungary. It's in Austria-Hungary over 33 years. So this is Eastern Europe. And basically you go from 1857 to 1867, then up to 1877, and then to 1890. And hopefully this is a lot like the document we did the other day, where we had the two maps of the city of Manchester and how much it grew. Okay, so some takeaways from this. This is going to take us over to topic 5.5 in the key concept chart. So it's going to get us through. I didn't do a lot. There won't be a lot on the test on the causes of industrial revolution. We're going to get more into the technology question. So this one deals with technology. You have to remember that the key component of railroad construction is steel. The tracks are made of steel. The railroad, the the engines and most of the box cars and all the other materials require steel. Bridges require steel. Okay, so this is part technology, the advancement of technology, how it shaped economic production over time, because the expansion of railroads leads to more goods and services getting everywhere. So it's really important there. Okay, and that kind of is the second part of this, is that the railroads continued to expand everywhere. And the reason we do Austria-Hungary, I gave you this Austria-Hungary document, is it's to show you that it's not just happening in England and France and Germany, but it's really happening all over the place. Carpathia is a fairly remote region of Austria-Hungary, at least in the 19th century. It is not a well developed. This is the area of Carpathia is Dracula. Okay, this is vampires and all this of literature and stuff like that, of legend. So it's not, the I don't know, it's not Paris. It's not even Vienna or other, England and United States where there's, culture. This is a very rural, traditional area, but the railroads you see are expanding in there because of the desire for trade. Okay. The last one has to do with Japan. So that's going to get us to 5.6. And it's really, Japan also falls under 5.4 with the expansion of it. But really, this one, it's the governmental role that comes in. So let's take a look at the document. Okay, this will be the last document on the test. I believe there are 12 questions or 14 questions on the test. So each document has 2 to 3 questions. So this one here, this is the steam train in Yokohama in 1872. Got to go back and kind of just remember your historical context here of Japan in the back half of the 19th century. The U.S. arrival in 1853, kind of forcing open trade. Japan abolishing the shogunate in 1868 and beginning a modernization process known as the Meiji Restoration. All of this is in your reading. We've done it. We did the couple of days. We spent quite a bit of time on Japan. First comparing them to Russia and then comparing them to Egypt, okay, because they are the success story of non-European industrialization, non-European, and when we talk European, we also include the United States, because the people leading the United States, especially at that time, are mostly of European heritage, okay. So this is the Meiji Restoration in Japan. You see the way the people are dressed. You see the steamships, you see the railroads. This is all examples of Westernization and modernization. And if you remember the documents that we did on Japan when we compared them to Russia, Japan's government is the sponsor of all this. They were in many cases providing the money to build the factories, to build the shipyards that then built the ships, okay? The long-term consequences of this, and I know I talked about it in class, is World War II, okay? Because Japan will eventually, due to their lack of resources in Japan proper, decide that it's easier to get resources through trade, through conquest, than it is through trade. And a lot of that will be because of the difficulties they encounter with the United States over their invasions of China and Korea in that time frame. So Japan, in the 50 years after this picture is painted, 50 to 60 years, will expand its industrial process, and eventually they will conquer Korea and then attempt to conquer China. Okay, so that really brings you into this one here. You're looking at the causes and effects of economic strategies, and the one that's the most important in here is this one. Okay, the second historical development there, the expansion of U.S. and European influence in Asia, leads to internal reform in Japan, supported the industrialization, and led to the growing regional power of Japan in the Meiji era. Okay, so that's the documents what you need to know on the test. Okay. The big thing with the multiple choice, okay, on the AP tests and pretty much in tests in general, at least the history tests that I'm familiar with, the way they set up um, the four choices. Okay, you're going to have a stimulus. You've got them all. Okay, these are the ones you're going to do. So if you familiarize yourself with these documents, compare them with where they fit into that key concept page, you should have enough background. Look into your homework and stuff like that so that you know what the basics of each of these documents are you're familiar with. You know what you need to study out of this big long unit that we've spent over a month on. You know what you need to focus on. Okay, on actually doing the multiple choice. Okay, if you look in the back of your the end of your textbook, each chapter there are some multiple choice there. They have a stimulus with them, and then they have four choices. Generally speaking, two of those choices are incorrect. They are either in the wrong time frame, the wrong place on the planet, so the wrong geography, or they are just historically not factual. Okay, they're incorrect, they're wrong. Then that leaves you two others. So if you can narrow down and get rid of the two that you know are not correct, and that requires you to know by doing the studying of what's going on in those time frames. So you're going to study your homework on these questions and make sure you've got good answers there. Um, you know what to eliminate. Then you've got two. You have the right answer, and then you have the one that's almost right. And they often it's kind of like a teaser or it's a redirection or whatever. There's a couple different terms for what they're doing it there, and I don't know why they put that on there, but it's designed to see if you really know the information. Okay, there's one that's almost correct, or one that's really a much better answer than the others, though they both one might be slightly correct, but the other is definitely much more correct. And that's what you need to suss out on that. Oftentimes, the second one will be almost correct except for one word. It might have a not in there or a never in there, and if you just read it quickly, it trips you up. And that's why they put it in there. They want you need to make sure you read carefully. You need to make sure you read these documents, and that's why I gave them to you early so that you could familiarize yourself so you don't have to spend a whole lot of time reading the documents. If you spend some time this weekend, or if you've already done it, just going through and say, what's the main idea of each document? Maybe look at think about the historical context especially, but also some of the sourcing stuff of where the ideas are coming from in that document. I think it's going to be a lot easier for you to come to the right answer. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Contact me through Google Classroom or through email, and I will do my best to clear up your questions. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll see you Monday morning.